With that being said, let's jump into our first segment of the day with reporters questioning Karine Jean-Pierre on crime, Mayor Lori Lightfoot of Chicago being ousted, as well as these sentencing laws having the possibility of being overturned in Washington, D.C., and if President Joe Biden is going to veto those or not. As always, support us by hitting that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Yeah, thank you. So Chicago had their first round of their mayoral elections yesterday. And it's the latest big American city where frustrations about crime was a central issue of the cycle. Does President Biden, does he feel that this administration and I guess Washington writ large is putting enough attention on dealing with the issue of crime, particularly in areas, big urban areas like Chicago?
So let me just
look. Can we just call a spade and stop throwing all this stuff under the rug through this question? Can we just be clear for a moment, like Karine Jean-Pierre always says she's going to do, but let's actually be clear here. It's Democrat-ran areas. It's Democrat-ran cities. That's predominantly what people are frustrated with. Very rarely you're going to see people frustrated with crime in red states because Republicans take crime seriously, where you look at places like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, where you let criminals run roughshod over an entire city, and so people flee to red states because they're tired of the crime. So let's call a spade a spade. It's Democrat-ran cities, not just these urban areas.
first speak to the mayor's race. Look, the president is committed to working with whomever the people in Chicago or the people on the ground, whichever, if it's a city or a state, whomever they choose to represent them. So that is the case and will continue to be the case. And so I'm going to withhold commenting on any specific race, but I know you're asking about crime specifically. Look, the president put forth, as you know, a comprehensive Safer Communities plan, and he put that forth after inheriting a rise of crime. That is something that
Who'd you inherit it from, Karine? Who implemented all these policies that would have crime increase? Gee, I don't know. Maybe the Democrats, maybe the very party that you're a part of, and so has Joe Biden been for literally decades. You don't look any further than George Floyd, where a bunch of Democrats literally ran roughshod over cities and burned them to the ground. They're still doing it. So it's the Democrats that are causing all this problem. You don't have to look any further than also Los Angeles, where literally Democrats voted in propositions where it's a misdemeanor to steal anything $950 or less of goods. There are literally people that we've shown here in the Bald Brad Show on security footage just walking in with duffel bags, stealing a load of stuff, lipstick, you got freaking lip balm, deodorant, right? Laundry detergent, but they got to feed their families is what we were told. You know, racism, discrimination, whatever it may be. Stealing all this stuff and walking out of the store. That's why literally Starbucks, Walgreens, all over the place around the country, we're closing shop in Democrat-ran areas because it's your guys' policies that is causing all this stuff. But then you're going to sit there and say, well, the president put over a comprehensive plan since day one. It's always comprehensive. You notice that? Except nothing actually gets done. The president doesn't actually solve anything. He doesn't do anything except make things worse. Let's let her continue.
That he has been focused on since the beginning of his administration. Let's not forget, in that plan, he calls for more than 100,000 police officers to go into the community, to work with communities and make sure that communities feel safe, families feel safe, and that's what the president has put forward. And you'll see, when you see his commitment to crime, you'll see that in his budget next week. As you know, we're going to release that March 9th, and it will reflect his commitment as well as we're trying to continue to fight crime, which is the president has been leading at from the beginning of his administration. But what we have seen is that for years, congressional Republicans have been doing the opposite. When you think about the COPS program, which is something that the president put forward.
Here we go. Blame Republicans for everything. It's amazing how she tries to spin this when it is so clear as day that it's Democrat-ran cities. And you see the same messaging from The View. I mean, you see this just from the progressive left, how somehow they're going to spin it, make it Republicans' fault for all this stuff. I mean, literally on The View, they said it was red states that had the most crime. But then when you actually look at that study, if you zoom in, it's the blue cities in those red states that's causing all the crime, which affects the state as a whole. But again, you can never zoom in on their studies because it just blows out their entire narrative. And their entire worldview is completely shattered. Their reality is gone, and they have no argument to go with. She's doing the same thing here. Well, it's the Republicans that want to defund the police. Really, Karine? Really? It's Republicans that want to do that? It wasn't, Democrats taking over entire autonomous zones like CHOP and CHOC during George Floyd. That didn't happen. It wasn't literally your own people like Maxine Waters and others, part of the squad, part of a fringe group of the Democrat Party standing on the podium to attack Trump supporters or Republicans or these ultra MAGAs that you call them. No, that wasn't taking place. But yeah, you guys are right. You got this comprehensive plan. It's just these urban areas. It's not Democrat-ran cities or anything like that. We'll just be gaslit here by this administration.
Forward, they have wanted to defund that, to take that away. And if you think about that, that leads to defunding the police. Just recently, they called on defunding the FBI. And you think about the border security funding.
Hold on a second here. Let's at least be clear. I'm going to be honest with you. We didn't call for just defunding the FBI. We called for abolishing the FBI. So at least I'm clear on it. I don't want them to be defunded. I want them to be abolished after what we just saw in the criminal behavior that's going inside that organization, that bureau. And by the way, it wasn't like, well, let's abolish it and not have anything to go and replace it. We wanted a new bureau that's full of the good guys from the FBI, fire all the bad guys from the intelligence that we have on those bad guys, and start a new bureau that actually wants to do their job correctly and not work in line with Joe Biden to do criminal behavior, just like we saw with the IRS in the Obama administration, where the IRS went after conservatives. But, hey, at least I'm honest with everybody here. She's not.
They want to take that away as well. So the president has been committed. And one more thing I would add, let's not forget the banning assault weapons. That is a key part of this. When we think about crime, we think about gun crime, that we believe will help alleviate the crime that we're seeing, keep families safe, keep communities safe across the country. So
you want to get rid of assault weapons, which is just semi-automatic rifles or just handguns. I mean, let's be clear. She's not going to be clear. I'm going to be clear with you guys. Literally, Joe Biden himself was clear every now and then. I know it's a shocker to hear Joe Biden, the word clear, of him speaking clearly in the same sentence, as head spinning as it is. But honest to God, it's amazing that she's going to sit there and say, well, let's remove assault weapons, whatever the hell that means. And I'm being clear with you. It just means handguns, semi-automatic, just one pull the trigger. So look. It's baffling that they're going to say, well, they want to keep families safe by removing the weapons from the good citizens, those that are following the laws on the books, that want the right to bear arms to protect themselves and their family from a violent criminal or a domestic usurpacious government like the United States government, or someone foreign abroad like the Chinese or the Russians, whatever, who may invade us. I mean, there's so many reasons to right to bear arms or have that right, but she's going to sit there and remove that right from actual law-abiding citizens, but let the guns of the criminals stay in the hands of them, so that those criminals go and shoot the good guys. I mean, I am giving a very big blanket statement of it, but it is so asinine to actually just be like, well, just would have an assault weapons ban. And you want to even know what's even more crazier than that? You literally have a president that put his hand on the Bible, that was told that he would uphold the Constitution, a right to bear arms. And it's so normal now to have people just sit on the podium, these elected politicians that are supposed to sit there and uphold that right for you to bear arms and have the right to free speech, to basically stand there and go against that very right that was given to you by God. We live in such crazy times.
The president has walked the talk. The president has been very consistent on making sure that communities feel safe and fighting crime, and he'll continue to do that.
Yes, I just wanted.
So it wasn't just that question, but we have a follow-up regarding crime as well. It's a question about these sentencing laws in Washington, D.C. that's basically going to lower the sentence for certain crimes, kind of like what we saw in Los Angeles happen already. And if that were to happen, is Joe Biden going to veto them? And the reason why this question is so important, and it happens later on in the briefing, is because she just got done giving her whole spiel about how Joe Biden wants to sit there and support cops and he wants to solve the crime issue and all these things. Well, you're not necessarily solving the crime issue if you're lowering sentences for criminal behavior. That's incentivizing crime. And we've seen that with the attorney general in Los Angeles that isn't prosecuting people on crime. And we're also having propositions that basically affirm that criminal behavior in the first place. I mean, literally, there's people doing that. There's no cash bond. They're just, you go to jail and you come right back out. I'm not kidding. It's like going on in California. So it's a good question. Let's see what she has to say.
To circle back to crime, as soon as next week, Congress could end up overturning a new sentencing law in D.C. that reduces penalties for some violent crimes, among other measures. Is the president prepared to issue a veto if that vote passes and it crosses his desk?
So I know we've been asked this question before. Look, the president takes this very seriously when it comes to crime. I'm not going to get ahead of what the what the decision is going to be, or what it's going to ultimately look like. Don't want to get too much into hypotheticals. But what I can state clearly, and I've said this before, the president is very committed to make sure that our communities are safer, that families feel safer. That's why he put forth a plan very early on, making sure that we put more police in communities, that work with communities so that they feel safer. And you'll see that as it relates to funding, you'll see that in his budget next month. I'm not going to get into too much of hypotheticals from here, but the president, I believe, in the last 2 years and throughout his career, has shown his dedication in making sure that we keep communities safe.
Okay. And
I mean, the lying, just the sheer lying is just mind bending. That it's so normal now just to hear her not answer questions or spin it, make it Republicans' fault or whatever it is, and have a straight face. There's no self-reflection coming in going, man, I'm just standing up here lying to a bunch of people every single day, and I'm totally okay with it. I wouldn't be okay lying to all of you guys. The only lie that would come out of my mouth is an unknowing lie, unbeknownst to me, that I would be lying to you. I wouldn't actually be able to be aware of it. And at never any point am I sitting there actively telling you a bunch of lies and cognitively going, yes, I know I'm lying to them, but let me lie. It's so crazy. It's so crazy that people like that. I mean, that to me is actually just pure evil. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.